Good morning. What's been stressing you lately? School, work, family, your mom, your dad, your siblings, your in-laws, friends, neighbors, love life, finances. Whatever it is, we all have something in common nowadays. You might think that I'm gonna say we are common in having problems, but nope, that's not what I want to point out today. Because I know we all had enough of that, especially since the day one of lockdown. Hashtag stress level 999. Especially for the non-working parents, young adults, or even for the working students, right? So yesterday, I saw a TikTok video about how to do a makeup every morning that went viral. The people were able to relate to her, especially when she said, I usually start my day by waking up and sitting down in front of the mirror to find my will to live. Then few minutes or hours after, I wash my face, blah, blah, blah. That's what she said. I paused for a moment when I heard that. She's finding her will to live too? Because that somehow hit me like, yeah, I'm feeling the same way. Now that mostly I have no one to talk to when I wake up in the morning, or no one's there to even bother to wake me up, or as I lay down to bed, trying to sleep, making it as an escape from all these negativities I'm having. Yes, just a little sharing. My dad died 3 years ago, and recently my mom too. I never wanted to talk about it even when the pastors asked me how I'm doing, because it triggers a lot of emotions. But here they are, smart enough to think that it might be helpful if they'll ask me to do this sermon for the Youth Sunday, specifically Pastor Grace, which they know I would accept. Also, maybe I could share my story. And it might be an eye-opener to those who will listen or watch. I'd be lying if I'd say that I don't feel negative at times, though I grew up in this church and lead worships. And I am Christian myself. I know that, and I'm a youth to be specific. But aren't we all feeling these from time to time? Loneliness, worries, and stuffs. Lately, depression and anxiety rate has been rising compared to the previous century. Our generation, the millennials they may call us, has been exposed to more of these mental issues. Issues that are being ignored before by the people with strong minds. To which, at least, I believe that I also have the strong mind, and consider that acquiring these issues is being a weakling. I've never taken these issues seriously before until I have witnessed death over multiple times, though not for me, but to those I dearly loved. What a heavy mood to begin with. But don't worry, I did that on purpose, for us to reflect on ourselves and to identify the areas of our lives that are needed to be reprimanded or to be rebuked. Also for us to be able to compare the value of light after experiencing darkness. Well, this is mine. This is my story. Now think of yours. Think of what's been bothering your mind lately, or even from few years ago, in whatever status you are, or wherever place you are. Perhaps what we have in common is the exhaustion in finding the solution to these problems, finding the answers to our questions, finding the light in the darkness, or should I say, finding the light again from getting lost in the dark. Well, let me not prolong your agony, and I will reveal this not a secret, but sounds like a secret way to solve these. Listen carefully, because quarantine might have erased this from our minds. Taken from Luke 1, verses 78 to 30 said, "Because of the tender mercy of God, whereby the sunrise shall visit us from on high, to give light to those who sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the path of peace. And the children grew," referring to John the Baptist, "became strong in spirit, and he was in the wilderness until the day of his public appearance to Israel." I have 3 points for today. The first one is expose yourself to light. Before I proceed, I've used the acronym E.A.T, spells E.A.T. You might be hungry after listening to this. This is just a short sermon, but usually a lot of us gained weight because of quarantine. So yeah, I hope you'll remember it, E.A.T. Number 1, expose yourself to the light. The verse 78 said, "Because of the tender mercy of God, whereby the sunrise shall visit us from on high." Applying the verse from a chapter that talks about Zechariah's prophecy to his son, John the Baptist, verse 78 began with the word "because," meaning it is a reason of something. Rearranging the sentence, it says, "Whereby the sun shall rise and visit us from on high because of the tender mercy of God." It emphasized that the light is there because there is God. Nowadays, especially to the youth, how often do you see the sun rise? Huh? For all I know, the quarantine allowed us to wake up at noon or afternoon, wherein the sun is already up and striking. Then the sun sets, we take sleep overnight, and then the sun is up again. Thus, hear this, the value of the sun rising is being underrated. How much more to the one who created it? Sometimes we forget to appreciate one's value when it's always there, and we know that God is always with us. We forget to appreciate one's value when it's always there. If you haven't exposed yourself with the right amount of sunlight, for even once lately, look at your skin. It's screaming, "I need vitamin D." And it's the same to our soul, to our lives, to ourselves, our minds, our hearts. If you haven't took time to speak to God, if you haven't exposed yourself to Him, look at yourself. You're screaming too loud for help. Which leads to my point number 2. Letter A, acknowledge the need of light. 78 said, "To give light to those who sit in darkness and in the shadows of death, to guide our feet into the path of peace." This brings to the purpose of why God showed us His mercy. It's because we need it, especially during the dark times, even in the presence of death, even in the presence of COVID-19. Then He guides our feet into the path of peace. But why did He mention peace? It may sound easy at first, but there is a misconception about how we obtain peace. We often think that peace is conditional and seasonal. It is that Jesus will give me the spirit of peace after I finish my project on time, after my business grows. I will find peace when my wife and my mom finishes their rants every morning. I will have peace after I punch my enemy, after I blocked him on Facebook. I will find peace if I fix my broken car, my broken heart. If I get married and get rich, then you'll acquire the spirit of peace. After the year 2020 finished, we will acquire peace. Is that so? But it is not like that. Because you can pass your exams or have good grades, but still ends up worrying about your future jobs, future finances, or even people's judgments. It is because you can be successful or rich, but still ends up being stressed and feeling anxious about how to keep your money intact and you being safe as you sleep at night. In reality, there is always a new challenge to surpass after another. To us young people, just imagine the stress level that mothers had to go through since pregnancy up to handling you today during online classes. Imagine that. Focus. Jesus said, into the path of peace, which means peace is not a destination. Moreover, having Him in control of your life is an endless journey with peace because He is with you all along. This is a promise that even though your mind and your heart, even your mind and your heart is scared of the thought of failing school, getting anxious about the virus from exposing yourself as you go to work every day, watching your wallet getting empty, your bank account being drained, that's normal. Yet, you still have to give your feet, to be specific, your feet to Jesus. Because your feet is the one you use for walking. You allow Him to walk you into the path of peace with Him. Give Him your feet and allow Him to guide you every day. Every day. Because it is not your feet that gets anxious. It's just your mind and your heart. Lastly, number 3, letter T, take time to grow. Verse 80 says, "And the child grew," referring to John the Baptist, "became strong in spirit, the spirit of peace. And he was in the wilderness until the day of his public appearance to Israel. Knowing your will to live and receiving the spirit of peace while listening to this sermon is not a problem. But keeping it when no one is watching will be quite hard, I must know." But verse 80 tells the assurance of God. "And the child grew and became strong in spirit." We all started from being a child, but we don't have to stop there. We don't have to stay the same. We don't have to stay like a child forever. We have to grow. We have to mature in faith. And what makes us grow? Growing deeper in faith by keeping the Spirit once we have it. Use it as we conquer our anxieties and fears or whatever it is that bounds us from evil while we are here in the wilderness. The world is our wilderness itself. As long as we are alive, there will always be something that challenges us, but not all the time. Because, again, there is the assurance of having the Spirit of God. The Spirit of peace, even though we are being challenged. The Spirit of peace in every hardship. And it is a preparation for you and me to serve our purpose. Just like John sent to Israel to preach in public. Are we ready to be used by God and to preach in public like John the Baptist? So what is it that's been stressing you lately? Let me quote a line from Pastor Stephen Furtick, which my sermon was inspired from. "You can't experience peace when you're expecting perfection." Again, you cannot experience peace when you're expecting perfection. As a Christian, a student, a parent, a person, we don't have to be perfect. We just need to have a progress with the Spirit of God every single day. Remind yourself that faith is bigger than your fears. Let me end this by sharing the thought that God gave me last night. So I know the demons were challenging me because they know that I'll be giving this sermon today. That usually happens. So I was cry, usually having the night that I miss my mom and all things going on with my mind. So I was crying while taking a bath. I had this children's song in my mind. We all know this. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. Hallelujah. Then I thought, why river? Why not ocean or pond or lake? What makes a river special? To be taken as an illustration of peace. And a picture of the river came and it's because all of them are stagnant. And the river is the only body of water that flows, continually flows. It is indeed peaceful because it continually flows, whether during rainy days or sunny days. Then it remains still and calm after a storm. So I have a challenge for us all. Let's be rivers. Be a river today. Amen.